Hello, how are we? So I'm super excited to be here today. We got a sort of a history of our experience with Sumerian over about the last 12 months or so. And then at the end, Rory's going to share some examples that we've done most recently with Visy. So Sumerian for me kind of started about this time last year at the innovation session in the theatre where AWS launched the Sumerian host, Australian Sumerian host. And I was new to the industry at the time, and I'm quite interested in augmented reality and VR. And it started to get me excited around what can I do in that space. I took what I learned on the day, came back to the office and started to try and find places to use Sumerian. The first place we started was with wayfinding. So we have a team of about 5 people that work in augmented reality quite a lot. And we've done a lot with wayfinding in retail environments. So we thought we'd take the Sumerian technology and see what we can do. It was quite easy to play with, worked quite fine. One of the learnings we took from that is that if you have arrows on the ground, people tend to hold their mobile phone up and walk around and look like that. And the learning we took out, if you change the arrows to footprints, people then tend to raise their phone up and then actually pay attention to what's around them. So that's good because people stopped falling over and actually used the technology for what we intended it to be used for. So we took that kind of the central piece of having the mobile as the interaction point, and we started to think a little bit bigger. What can we do? What can we do with the Sumerian technology? And we took a look at smart cities. Again, with that same principle of how can I use a mobile as a central point to interact with around me in an augmented reality way. And one thing we started looking at was AR pop-up stores. And we were looking at the concept of if I go to a store and it's full or it's busy or there's a line, I might just continue to walk past and never engage with that company or that brand. So if I had my mobile using Sumerian, I could then scan the pop-up store in front of me, get a little bit of information about what's there, and we can start to translate that idea and that concept into things like museums and libraries and try and get people to go and experience the assets that a city provides. So if I'm walking past a museum and there's a tour at 1 o'clock, I can hold my phone up, I can see through the augmented reality features from Sumerian that tour is full or there might be a couple of people left. So subsequently I would book the 2 o'clock tour and I'd have a little bit more space. But rather than me telling you what Sumerian can do, I thought maybe we'll ask Sumerian itself. So we'll switch over to the demo after I log in. Hello, Nui. What's possible with Sumerian in a smart city?
Hello, Dan. Really, anything is possible in this environment. Sumerian is a great tool to unleash the possibilities of a smart city. If we look at this through the lens of a digital touchpoint and focus on some key principles such as collaboration, connectivity, efficiency and people, a number of ideas come to mind.
Like what?
For collaboration, we can explore interactive play features. By leveraging the power of AR, we can make our collaboration spaces fun. Interactive exhibits can be set up in front of libraries, not only enticing people to visit but also encouraging us to communicate with one another.
That sounds really great. What else can we do?
In order to be more connected, we can explore smart parking. When I'm heading into the city, my mobile phone can guide me to open car parks that suit my intended destination, encouraging me to connect with the city around me on a more regular basis. This also provides improvements in efficiency in the city. I can spend less time on transit and more time interacting with the environment around me, encouraging me to continue to engage with the city I live in.
Well, you can really do a lot, Nui.
When you bundle all these ideas together, we need to remember to focus on the people using the technology. The technology should be used to support and enhance our way of life. We can do all of this using the power of Sumerian and other AWS services, making our cities smarter and in the process attracting and retaining talented people.
Thanks, Nui. We'll switch back to the presentation. So, we've kind of dreamed big, we've thought big, and we've explored what we can do with Sumerian. And the slide on screen right now is kind of how we think about these activities. So when I was sharing our work in the augmented reality wayfinding space, that was kind of the readiness phase. And we sort of dive into, okay, what can we do, how can we do it, etc. And then when we're kind of thinking more broadly, we go to this sort of incubation mode where it's the diversion and conversion thinking. So for the smart cities scenario, we were absolutely diverging. Hey, what's possible? What can we do? Let's dream big, think big. And now we're going to jump into the conversion thinking, where we focus on one use case, one scenario, one opportunity to improve something. So we're going to tell you a little bit about a use case at Visy that was launched about a month ago. So Visy is an incredibly innovative company, and a lot of their innovation is done behind the scenes. And we were working with them to, okay, how can we take that out and show the world how innovative you are? So Rory's going to come up to the stage now and share a little bit about our virtual concierge solution for Visy. So Rory. Yep, there you go. Cool.
Thanks, Dan. Hello all, I'm Rory. I was the tech lead on the virtual concierge experience that we built for Visy. I'm going to start off by talking about how we got there. We had a chat with Visy, we had some workshops, we worked through a couple of experiences that they might want for this concierge to have, and this storyboard that we've got here is what we ended up on. We wrote this storyboard out, drew it up, and dreamed it up before we actually wrote any code, before we touched Sumerian. This is all pre-actually working on the project. This is what we're doing, a workshop. So I'll quickly run through each of these steps and give you a bit of an idea of the experience. So a customer would come into Visy, and they see this life-size 3D avatar and a little tablet with a start button. When they hit start, they're greeted by the Sumerian host, who says, "Hello, welcome to Visy. My name's Dave, and who are you here to see?" And then the user will select the person they're there to see, fill in their details. All the while, this Sumerian host will be talking to them along the way, making sure that they know what to do, filling in the right details, and sort of prompting them to make sure that they don't get stuck or if they're confused about something. So name, company name, phone number, then there's a confirmation screen. They hit I accept. At that point, there's an OH&S screen that shows up, which is all the occupational health and safety, like where the fire escapes are and all that sort of fun stuff that everyone definitely reads all of. And after they've gone through that and hit I accept, the host of the meeting, so the person from Visy who they're there to see, will get a text message to say, "Hey, your guest is here. Please go and pick them up," or "Here's their phone number," and contact them directly if you're not going to be able to make it or if you're going to be late. So we were trying to eliminate the confusion of, you've turned up to this place, you've signed in, does anyone know I'm here? Is someone actually going to come out and talk to me? That was what we were aiming for, as well as, like Dan was saying, we were aiming to try and showcase some of Visy's internal capability for innovation. So here is the technical gore. This is the high-level architecture diagram for the experience. So I'll quickly run through this so you get a bit of an idea of how it's all glued together. So we have the Sumerian host on a web browser, on a TV about life size, in portrait mode. And we have a web tablet running a Node.js web app, which is what the user interacts with to type their name and their phone number. For that experience, we're using Route 53 to find where the address is. We've got an EC2 instance running a Node.js app. Majority of the middleware is all through AWS services. So for example, using API Gateway, the API Gateway will talk to a Lambda function, talk to a database, get the host's details, and then as you progress through this experience, when you're finally finished and it sends a message to the host, it retrieves those details from the database and sends them a message using SNS. We're also using the IoT Core messaging platform to talk from the API Gateway to Sumerian, which is a bit of an odd choice, but we chose that specifically to make it modular, and we have an eye to adding a lot more features to this in the future, and the devices that we want to implement in this experience may not have the capability for full SSL and having to worry about certificates. We wanted to use MQTT and be lightweight enough so that communication can happen no matter what we want to add. Now, working with Sumerian. We've done a couple of Sumerian projects now, and I thought this was a good audience to talk to about the highlights and the challenges that we faced with Sumerian. So some of the highlights, if you are willing to deploy this to the public, so you've just got a link that anyone can go to, it is a 2-click publish. And that includes Cloudflare. It's all hosted on AWS infrastructure, scalable, wonderful. As long as you're willing to have it be public, that's 10 out of 10, very, very easy. Getting a basic host up and running, so some sort of 3D avatar that can talk, relatively simple. You can click and drag it into the scene, adjust what it says, and that is also fairly trivial to do. All the interconnectivity parts are a bit more challenging, but just getting anything up and running is pretty quick. Their visual scripting tool helps with this idea of getting things up and running quickly and iterating fast without necessarily having to be a die-hard JavaScript developer. The integration with other AWS services is great as well. Cognito is just you put your Cognito ID in, you've got to set up your permissions, etc., but it's fairly trivial to integrate with other AWS services, as you would hope, being an AWS service. And one thing I really want to call out is Twitch streaming. So AWS have been streaming their features, their new features and tutorials on Twitch, and a lot of developers also like games. Who would have thought? Twitch is where those people live. So I absolutely love the fact that they're using Twitch to connect with developers. It's great, keep it up, please, more Twitch. Some of the challenges that we had. So it is hard to collaborate as part of a team using Sumerian. Now, it's hard because you can only have one person in a scene at a time, which makes it difficult to integrate features between multiple teams or multiple people in the same team. That was a challenge. Keep that in mind. You may not find it easy to have a team of 30 people all working on the Sumerian part of your Sumerian project. Just keep that in mind. The developer community, still kind of small. You can't Stack Overflow your question like with every other question you might have in relation to programming. Their Slack channel, however, is amazing. Join that community. If you're getting into Sumerian, they're very helpful. A lot of the devs of Sumerian live in this channel. So jump in there, ask a question, and even if they don't answer specifically, a member of the community or myself will more than likely jump in and help out. Also, you can't use your own IDE. So they have an inbuilt web-based IDE, which is actually really nice. Dark mode by default, it's great. But if you're very familiar with your own text editor and your own IDE, you may find it a little challenging, a bit of a hurdle to get over to begin with. But again, their web editor is great. It's just not your IDE that you're using right now unless you're already using Sumerian. As mentioned before, we used a bunch of AWS services in this. There's a chance for tons more. So right now we're using Cognito, Sumerian, S3, Lambda, IoT Core, heaps of it. Not all of it, there's a lot of services, but lots. And in the future, with every feature that we want to add, things like facial recognition and more voice interaction and maybe integrating with, say, an email provider. So using SNS, not just for the SMS, but also for sending emails to these people, to the hosts that you're there to see. All of this is going to require more AWS services. Something to keep in mind when building a product like this, where you've got lots of different AWS services that you want to sort of make part of the same project, the serverless framework. I'm not talking about the idea of a serverless application, I mean the serverless framework. It is an excellent framework to use if you're trying to keep a hold of lots of different AWS services in the same code base. I can't recommend it enough. Get onto it. Even if you're not using Sumerian specifically, the serverless framework is great for lots of different AWS-based projects. So one of the other challenges that we had with this project was we have 3 different user interfaces that we have to make feel like one application. So in our case, we had the web app on a tablet. We have the Sumerian screen, which is in a browser. And then we've got the SMS. Now, the SMS is a pretty light user interface in that it's very one-way and it's kind of simplified, and that was done on purpose because it fits in with Visy's current sign-in registration model. But one of the unintuitive things that we discovered in terms of the web app and Sumerian and making them feel like they're one application was adding an arbitrary delay to your web page, which on the surface sounds like a horrific idea. You never want your web pages to be less responsive. However, what we discovered was if you hit next on the tablet and you start entering in your details and then the Sumerian host starts talking to you, they feel completely disconnected, and the user's more likely to just ignore the Sumerian host part of the experience and just tunnel vision, focus in on this tablet, just fill in their details and ignore whatever he's saying. And we found that by adding a delay so that they line up better, it ended up feeling like one experience. You hit next, the host starts telling you, oh, don't forget, please fill in your name so that they know how to contact you, and then the tablet will show what he's talking about. Feels more natural, feels a bit more conversational, which is also part of another feature that we'd love to be able to add to this sort of interface, where you've got a conversational interface instead of just a tablet with a web page on it. Lots of potential for the future. Also, the SMS side of things, it feels better when the name that sent the SMS is familiar. Now, in Visy's case, they used literally just the word Visy, but if you were to send an SMS to the end user for some reason using SNS or Sumerian as well, then you want the end user to know who that SMS is from, because we get notifications all day. The last thing you want is to be signing in here and then it's talking at you and then your phone goes off and you're not sure what that's about. But when it's timed right and it's familiar, it's much better. It makes it feel much more natural. So now I'm going to play a video which goes through the experience end to end.
When Rob arrives, he is greeted by the virtual concierge and asked to enter his details.
Hello there, and welcome to Visy. My name is Dave, and I'm here to guide you through the sign-in process. You can use the tablet in front of you to enter your information. So, who are you here to see today?
And you'll see Rob's very fast.
The virtual concierge guides Rob through the sign-in process.
It's very fast.
Great. I've let Jiggy know you're here. Please take a seat just on your left here, and they should be with you shortly.
After confirming Rob's details, a text message is sent to Jiggy alerting him that Rob has arrived. The text includes Rob's mobile number, so Jiggy can contact him directly if needed.
Hey, here you go. See to it?
All right, that sums up the overall experience. And again, it's very MVP, mostly because we wanted to nail it. We wanted that experience to be great for them. So it's simple and it should be better than their current sign-in experience, which is what we were aiming for. The feedback we got from Visy is that's exactly what they got. So now I'll pass over to Dan to talk about future use cases.
Cool. Thanks, Rory. Good job. Yeah, so we ran a session, sort of when we were putting this presentation together around, what else can we do with Sumerian? Where can we take it? But I thought kind of instead of us talking through what we can do, we've kind of been listening to people at our booth throughout the last 24 hours or so. And one use case that's popped up is kind of the one that's risen above all the rest in terms of desirability is learning management systems. So Rory and I might do something now that we like to call ARPing, which is Architectural Action Roleplay. So we're going to work through that right now. So Rory, if I was to take what we've built here and apply it to a learning management system, how would that work?
You're right. So if you were to try and get this virtual concierge to teach you something, so some sort of, like you're saying, a learning management system where you're teaching someone how to do something.
Yeah.
Most of the time with any new feature, you want to be talking to the client first. You need that feedback. You need to know the requirements really well. So we would usually start with a workshop, and then there'd be a lot of discussion back and forth about, well, how does that work? Like, what does this feature really mean? What would it mean to deliver this feature for you, for the client? And a lot of the time, this is not a just wait for them to answer. We have a long session of back and forth, and does that make sense? Is this right? And they often rely on us to know the industry and those features and how it might work. At the end of those workshops, we tend to end up with not a set list of features that are set in stone per se, but a really good understanding so we can move on and build that storyboard like I was showing before, with a couple of really clear and concise user stories from start to finish. And then we start iterating.
Yeah, work from there.
Yeah.
So you could effectively integrate this with existing learning management systems and...
There's no reason why you couldn't. Sumerian, like the way we've built this experience is very modular. Again, the whole intention was try and keep things as modular as possible so we can integrate with, maybe you've got Google Calendar, or maybe, you've got your own learning management system. All of this is very doable as long as you're keeping good track of these integrations, again, with something like serverless or just keeping those connections really clear and separated in the proper way. It's doable, for sure.
Cool. All right, thanks, Rory. Yes, I mean, I think our experience with Sumerian is it's easy to get started. It's great to use. There's a couple of certified cloud practitioners sitting in the audience over there, and we're able to build a Sumerian application in about 20 minutes with no understanding of technology. So if we can do it, you can probably do it too. So I'd encourage you to get building. Come and chat to us at our booth over at S6 and the Future of Sport. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much. Yeah.